Welcome back to Bottom Line Africa. Attempt to shift our focus to President Uhuru Kenyatta's visit to UK. And President Uhuru Kenyatta recently concluded his 3-day tour of the United Kingdom, bringing back home a bag of goodies that symbolize a tighter UK-Kenya relations. Among the goodies in the president's basket was a 5-year defense cooperation agreement to tackle shared threats across East Africa. Over 800,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, 20 billion shillings to boost the Big 4 agenda, and much more. Here is a summary of the tour.
It has been a packed 3-day visit with the bilateral talks as Kenya and the United Kingdom sought to strengthen their ties. The last day of President Kenyatta's visit saw him co-host the official reception for the Global Education Summit. The Kenyan government receiving an applause over what was termed as a phenomenal job in the education sector.
This new MOU between the Republic of Kenya and the United Kingdom on healthcare workforce and UK-based health and education institutions, on the establishment of Kenya-UK Health Alliance, I believe will create a platform for not just health worker exchange, but total capacity building of healthcare professionals, not only in Kenya, but also in the region, who will also take advantage of this partnership. But more importantly, also strengthen our management of cancer, to explore, study, and understand better different cancers, how they affect different populations, and therefore be able to be in a much better position to provide our people with the kind of health care that they deserve.
The summit was officially opened by Kenya's Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo, and her counterpart from UK, Dominic Raab, aims to raise $5 billion to educate the children in the developing countries. On his part, President Uhuru Kenyatta called on leaders to make change to the current learning crisis.
We've had a very effective partnership between Kenya and the United Kingdom, a solid partnership in research and cooperation since the early 1980s through various programs between the Kenya Medical Research Institute, which is KEMRI, the Wellcome Trust and UK Aid. And this cooperation has immensely contributed to the advancement of medical research in Kenya in so many different ways.
And as Kenyatta's trip comes to a close, the president jets back to the country with a bag of goodies. On Tuesday, Kenya secured over 20 billion shillings after the UK announced new government and private investment into Big 4 projects, including affordable housing and manufacturing. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
All right, so let me bring in, when it comes to this trip by President Uhuru Kenyatta to UK, we talk about the significance of UK's visit with the Professor Masharia, Matters International Relations, a perfect professor to talk to us about this. Prof, and how are you doing? And thank you for joining us here on Bottom Line Africa.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing very well. Things are good, so I feel good.
That is perfect. Let's delve straight into it. So, Prof, we're talking about the president's visit to the UK. A bag of goodies has been brought to Kenya. But first of all, let's begin with that defense deal that Kenya signed with the UK in terms of the UK soldiers being trained here in the country. I mean, training here in the country and also them training our Kenya Defense Forces. How significant is this deal?
No, it's a very big deal. For one, it reinforces what used to be good relationship in terms of defense parameters. The British troops have been training in Kenya, but there was a time when there was doubt whether they should continue doing so and what were the ramifications. So what this deal has done is to remove doubts as to whether both countries, Kenya and the United Kingdom, feel they benefit from that collaboration. Not just in terms of training and maybe some equipment here and there and a little money here and there, but in the whole thrust of defense posture, Kenya's interest, and especially when dealing with terrorists and some other nefarious organizations, it's a good feeling that both countries can rely on each other when it comes to matters of defense interest.
Right. But then, Prof, when I'm looking at, that defense deal, defense cooperation agreement, and it's supposed to tackle shared threats across East Africa, why couldn't Kenya also include countries like Uganda, Somalia, because we play a very critical role when it comes to AMISOM peacekeeping in that war-torn country?
Well, Kenya has always been the hub of the region. And the understanding, the feeling is that once you have entry into Kenya, you have understanding, and the operations in Kenya tend to be regional as opposed to country-specific. The issue of regional security is foremost in Kenya, in Kenya's mind, and as Kenya projects itself in terms of service and assisting its neighbors, and a lot of our neighbors need assistance. It does harm to have some help, assistance from the friendly countries that have more resources. So there is nothing wrong with focusing on Kenya in order to spread to the rest of the neighborhood. And sometimes when you have multilateral entrances, implementation becomes a bit of a problem. But here now is a bilateral deal with the multilateral implications. And it stood on all sides that that's likely to happen.
All right. So, Prof, the other deal that the President signed with the UK, which is definitely a good news for Kenyans who've taken the AstraZeneca, the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, the people who've taken the first dose are waiting for the second. The question is, did the President really have to sign this deal for the country to get the AstraZeneca vaccine, because at the same time we're getting the vaccine through COVAX?
Well, we need more vaccines, and whichever way it's possible to secure more and more, because the number of people who need these vaccines are increasing. So whichever method is used to increase the number of vaccines available to the Kenyans is welcome, on top of all those other arrangements that they are there. It's true that not everybody has got his first jab or the second jab. I happen to have both of them, so I'm lucky in that sense. But there are thousands and millions of Kenyans who need that jab. So I think it's any effort made to increase the number of jabs available is welcome. And I hope the British will increase not just what they said they will give, but they increase the number because we need it. After all, Kenya was useful in trying to develop the vaccine. So we need, there should be understanding and send some more vaccines.
So, Prof, there's something interesting that caught my attention in this deal that was signed by Kenya, and we're talking about, signed between Kenya and the UK, sorry for that. It's about the 20 billion shillings to boost the Big 4 agenda and much more. So does it look like Kenya is moving away from the Asian countries, and so we are facing the Western countries, because most of the funding we've been getting it from China?
There is nothing wrong with that deal, and it does not in any way mean cutting ties with China or with any other country that is useful and helpful in pushing the Kenyan agenda forward, particularly in the infrastructure. The Chinese have been very good at it, and we can see the evidence for that. And that does not mean that turning away from the West, because Kenya has been very close to the West right from the time of independence. And what you have going on right now, in my view, is that the West that was left behind because it was dragging itself, sometimes unnecessarily coming up with things that did not make sense to Kenya. But now we have, in fact, they have been saying it themselves. Whether it's Washington or London or some other place, they need to do something to catch up with China, not necessarily to get rid of China, because it will not be in Kenya's interest to say that they're getting rid of China, but it is in Kenya's interest to keep tabs with China and to keep tabs with the West, with London, with Washington, and it's balancing up. So if something good for Kenya, it doesn't matter whether it comes from the West or the East, as long as it's good for Kenya.
Right, Prof. Just allow me to ask you this. Yes, you're saying as long as it sounds good for Kenya, and us turning to the West doesn't mean like we're turning our back to the Asian countries, specifically China. But was it really necessary for the president to sign this deal of 20 billion shillings? Because already we have loans from China that we need to repay. IMF is here on our back as a country in terms of the loans that we have. Then now we go to the UK to give us 20 billion shillings for the Big 4 agenda. Kenyans are being overtaxed at the same time.
Well, the language of that deal is that they are giving, isn't it? They're giving or loaning. Now, if they are giving, there's nothing wrong with it. And British, in recent times, especially when you look at the British High Commissioner in Nairobi, she's been going around the country really talking good about how Britain wants to help the country. Now, the Big 4 agenda needs some boosting. That's true. And of course, 20 billion shillings is not pocket money, but could be more. There could be more. And so we do need as much assistance as possible. And I think that's what the president is trying to project. He is in his last year as president in terms of the constitution.
All right.
And he would like to see some deliverables. And the Big 4 could those deliverables that you can say, here, we have built so many houses, we promise, here they are. Or the infrastructure is going on, so add to the infrastructure to create jobs. The factories that need to be boosted, we want to see them. The food security, we now have a looming food crisis because of the drought. So to be ready to prepare for that eventuality is a good move.
All right.
And the areas of investment, there are a lot of areas that need it. The Lamu port, the LAPSE. Although you go there, you see that there's some infrastructure groundwork for the city. But they need a lot of people to invest in Lamu and in Isiolo and in other places in order to make them vibrant.
All right.
More than the other. So it was a good move, and the president, he's a very personal person. So
all right.
he turns his and a little money comes in. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. So, Prof, let's have a look at the health sector. Because in that deal that was signed, we're seeing that, let me just get these figures correctly, Professor, that 30,000 estimated number of health workers who stand to benefit from a pact, from that pact that was signed between UK and Kenya to get jobless Kenyans into the UK's national health services. So here we're talking about 30,000 Kenyans going to the UK to get jobs within the health sector. Yet within our own health sector, there is a deficit of health workers.
That's true. There is a problem with our health deliveries, but there is nothing wrong with giving the British some foreign aid. They are the ones who keep on saying that they are giving us aid. Now we are giving them aid so that we can balance up their little things. And yes, we have been having challenges as a country in terms of providing jobs. So if there are jobs available for our workers in other places, and there should be good jobs. We don't want to hear some of the things we hear in some places. There should be good paying jobs. And what happens with those kind of jobs? The remittances that come from abroad. In fact, foreign remittances from people, Kenyans abroad, account for at least it's among the top 5.
All right, Professor, allow me to cut you short. Why are we doing this at the expense of health workers, of the health sector here in the country? Because as we speak, Professor, being reasonably as the leader of, one of Kenyans who on a daily basis tell the country through the media that county governments are looking for more health workers. Doctors are saying we need more health workers during this time of COVID-19. Nurses, lab technicians are talking about the same thing. Then here comes the president with a deal that he signed with the UK saying that give us a chance of at least 30,000 health workers to come into your country and give you medical services during this time of the pandemic. How realistic are we as a country?
I think we have a bigger problem than simply the numbers. We have a management issue in the counties. And until we reorganize the county, the management and the money flow the way it's supposed to be, because in theory, It is the counties that are supposed to employ these people. And management, there are management challenges that make it difficult for them to do it. So until we straighten up the management issue, the devolution aspect of it, then we are going to continue having problems. So I think that's what the challenge is at the county level, because we devolved this thing. And for some reason, they have failed to hire or to pay up to manage the people, the health sector at the local level. Maybe that's why some people have been saying we should maybe revert the health sector back to the national government so that we can challenge the national government that. So the issue of employment at the county level, we should question, because there have been a lot of wastage in the counties. We should question the management before we can say that this arrangement is bad. I think it is. It's not a permanent thing. It's a way of helping the workers who are there waiting to get jobs.
All right. And Prof, as we wind up, as we wind up in a minute, let's talk about the biggest reasons as to why the president went to the UK. I'm talking about the education summit that was aiming at raising $5 billion so as to help about 90 countries and beyond and above. I mean, beyond in terms of children who are not able to go to school during this time of COVID-19, the significance of that summit for the country and other African countries.
I think it was apt that there should be such discussions about the future of education, not just in Kenya, but in the region and everywhere. Apart from the implementation of the competent-based curriculum that was inaugurated by the president, and it needs a lot of input, intellectual input as well as practical input in terms of resources, money, and personnel. These things need to be examined properly by committed people, not just talking. That way, then we can move forward.
All right.
At present, I view education is in a crisis worldwide, in the sense that we're still trying to look for direction. At what point, where do we emphasize? We emphasize ethics and character, or we emphasize technicalities.
All right.
There's a debate here on technicalities and human values.
All right.
So, and I think this is good in that sense.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Masharia, very knowledgeable about international relation issues, talking to us about that significant visit of President Uhuru Kenyatta, the visit to the UK. But then, let's talk about the images of the day, and two Sumatran tigers at an Indonesian zoo recovering from COVID-19 were let out of isolation cages and shown to the media on Sunday. The tigers had tested positive in mid-July, and investigations were underway to find out how they became infected. Here are images of the recovering tigers.
Nggak bergerak. Ini sekarang sudah manjat pohon ya?
Iya, manjat Pak. Jika tidak bergejala kan kita tidak tahu dan tidak akan dilakukan swab kan. Jadi bagaimana?
Right, so that brings us to the end of Bottom Line Africa. My name is Brenda Zederadido. Thank you so much for watching and for keeping me company for the last 1 hour. To the men and the women behind